I'm not recording with them. Yes. Yeah, good morning. So I'm discussing the training of neural networks with the help of slides from Professor Fifi Lee team at Stanford. So after the discussion that we had on the backpropagation of feed-forward neural networks and the convolution neural networks, when we want to simulate neural networks, either deep feed-forward neural networks or convolution neural networks, there are many things that are to be taken care to make them effectively learn the parameters or the weights so that the classification will be more effective. These are all the block diagrams of different architectures that we have discussed already. And here is the depiction of backpropagation in neural networks. Okay, as you can see, we are through gradient descent rule. Where are we trying to move? We are trying to move on what and where? Can you please answer? See here, this is an example or simile the people, the picture has depicted. So they are trying to move towards something, okay, on something. So can you map this to the training of neural networks? Yeah, quick answer is welcome.
So we are moving.
We are moving on what?
We are moving opposite to the gradient, sir, and we are moving towards the global minimum.
Very good. We are moving towards a global minima. At least we are moving towards a minima. Okay, that's what is happening here. As you can see, we are moving towards a minima. Okay, but this can be global minima or not necessarily be global minima as well. It depends upon the learning rule you use. Okay, so if you use very good learning rule, you may reach out to the global minima. See, as you can see, initialization also plays a role. For example, if you initialize somewhere here, okay, this itself may be a minima. Okay, and you may not be able to reach this minima, may or may not be able to reach. Similarly, how fast you reach to the minima depends upon what? How fast you reach the minima depends upon learning rate. Okay, so how big is the learning rate? And you are moving on what? You are moving towards local minima or global minima, fine. Okay, you are moving on what? He's moving on some nice landscape. Okay, but what are we moving on in the training of neural networks?
Opposite to the gradient direction.
That's fine. So we are the direction you have given, but on what the movement is and which are moving. Is the person moving there? Yeah, quick answer is welcome. I think you should know it. Who are moving in training of neural networks?
So weights are moving.
Yeah, each of the weight parameters are moving. Fine. Where are they moving?
So,
what is the space where we see that they are supposed to move to the minima?
We vary the weights in the direction in which we get a minimum loss value towards the loss.
So you should tell me more like specific answer or a pointed answer on pinpoint answer on say where are we moving? Say for example, if this is a two-dimensional space, okay, what is x here? What is y here? Or what is the function here on which way we are moving? That's what is the question. Yeah, if you want me to write here, I will do. What's, yeah, some of you, any of you will be able to tell?
They will be moving on loss function.
Very good. We are moving on J, okay, or L. Okay, if we consider loss function as L or J, okay, that is the magnitude or the height, okay, in this space. And in this space, what is the x-axis and y-axis if we are just considering two dimensions? Okay, what are these two? What are these two?
They'll be weights W1, W2.
Yeah, W1 and W2. Okay, the space is W1 weight space only, but the function where we are moving, okay, where we are trying to find out minima, is the loss function or the cost function. Okay. So with respect to the cost function, we are looking at and trying to move on to the weight space. Okay, fine. So hope this is clear. So now all the plots and demos, okay, that you see in the Stanford web page also can be probably understood better. Okay, I encourage you people to see. See, there are different ways of training neural networks. The as we discussed before, stochastic gradient descent and batch gradient descent are two different ways of doing optimization. Okay, for learning these weights. So what is you remember what is the stochastic gradient descent and what is the what's the batch gradient descent? Yeah, quick answers are welcome because there are several slides here. Okay, assuming that you will quickly answer, I am asking questions.
So in batch
Okay.
gradient, in batch,
Yeah.
the weights will be updated for every batch, sir.
Okay, weights will be updated for every time. Okay, that's what stochastic gradient descent or batch gradient descent.
In batch gradient.
No. See, if there is a network, okay, so x1, x2, x3, each of the sample, if we are giving as input to the network, okay, x1, okay, x2, and so on. If I'm giving actually the thousands of samples, for each of them we find delta W. Okay, delta W1, if I consider it as the first sample, okay, if just for and delta W2 is for second sample, okay, and then up to delta W 1000, okay, is for 1000 sample. Okay, then these all, if I accumulate initially and then find out delta W for the whole batch, this is called batch. Batch of what? Batch of what?
Input samples.
Yeah, batch of input samples. Okay, so these batch, for the whole batch, if I find, okay, the gradient, and then use this to update the W's, all Wji, whatever, okay, equal to Wji minus eta times delta Wji. Okay, if I apply this kind of update rule, okay, then this is called batch gradient descent. Okay, whereas stochastic gradient descent is what?
After every input sample, we update the weights after passing each input.
So what we do is we randomly pick from this. So xk, kth sample. For that, find out delta Wk. Okay, and then update Wji is equal to Wji minus eta times, okay, delta Wk. Okay, this is stochastic gradient descent. Okay. So every time you pick randomly. Random sample. Okay, and then do this. Fine. Also, the convergence wise, stochastic gradient descent converges faster. Okay, and it has nice properties of randomizing the weights. Okay, it because you are using the first one sample which will move in one direction, other sample which will move in another direction, so that there is an imbalance that is set. Class 1 sample may come first, class 2 sample, okay, and then class 8 sample, class 1 sample again, like that. Batch also has an advantage of using all together, so it doesn't really move. Say if you are moving towards one direction, if you use suddenly another sample, it will move in another direction. Okay, so even here, if you see here, one sample may suggest you to move in the direction that is shown here. Okay, another sample may suggest you to move, okay, in the direction that is shown in some other direction. Okay, so it depends upon the input sample that you take for performing a minimization operation. Okay, so or the classification operation. Also, but the batch will take the assimilated information and do it, but it's a slow process because you are taking all together, then only you're doing once. Like that you need to do for each time, and each time once you consider all samples together is called epoch. One epoch means one pass. Okay, pass over what? One pass over all samples. Okay, equivalent to all samples. In case if you are using stochastic, if I do it for 1000 times, I consider it as one epoch completed. Okay, like that. But the more common procedure is to use mini batch stochastic gradient descent. Okay, we don't use either all 1000 samples which are in the data set. Okay, or each individual sample. Okay, we may use actually say arbitrarily, randomly may pick. Okay, pick any say 50 samples. Okay, randomly pick some 50 samples and with them you update. Okay, so that means we while selecting these 150 samples, I may be using stochastic nature. Okay, stochastic framework. But after selecting these samples, I will be using batch update. Okay, so that's referred to as mini batch stochastic gradient descent.
Dance work చేస్తారు.
Yeah, any discussion or questions needed here? Okay, so that's what we do. So then the procedure of doing backpropagation is first anyway sample the batch of data that we discussed. Forward anyway pass the whole information, that is since we assume that you already initialize weights. Okay, we'll discuss a little more on how to initialize the weights. But if you initialize the weights, what we do is we just calculate at each layer what is the output. Okay, and then what is the loss. So up to that is forward pass. And then back propagate and find out the errors. Okay, why we are doing two-step process? First update the error, first find out the gradients at each of the layer. Using these gradients, then you do the update. Okay, why we are breaking this into 2 steps, 3 and 4? Why not directly do update of parameters using the chain rule or whatever? Why are we breaking this into 2 steps here? Why initially take the loss, back propagate to layer like last layer, next layer, and so on. First do the back propagation of errors, that is gradients. You calculate the back propagation of gradients of the loss function, okay, at each of the layer, and then do the update. Why are we doing it in a 2-step process? Update the weight parameters. Any answer? Quick answer. This is very important question.
So once we update, we should first calculate all the gradients, because if we update and keep on finding the gradients, the value of the cost will change.
Okay. Okay. Oh no, that's not the question. Question here is, see if you have a network like this. Okay. So what are we doing? So here you have actually J. Okay. After that you are calculating delta. No, so O1 I say. Okay. Delta O2 you are calculating. Delta O3. Okay. Whatever I am writing from here. So delta O1 otherwise O2, O3. Okay. And then here delta X, whatever. Okay. You are calculating all these things. Okay. And then all delta nets also. Delta net 1. Okay. All these things. You are calculating the gradients first. Okay. These are all, this is back propagation of backprop of gradients. Okay. And then updating the weights. Okay. You have already done W1, W2, W3 here, but you don't find out delta W. Okay. Delta W here itself, delta W3. First you do this process, then calculate actually delta using this delta W1. Okay. And then delta W2. Okay. And then delta W3. Why do we do that? Any suggestion? See, updating the weights means what? Weights are all matrices. Is it not? Okay. Where matrix element update is not straightforward. As you can see, it's IJ K, 3 parameters are there. It's like almost like a tensor. And if you have channels, it's even more involved. Okay, so now what we have is, see what we are doing, we are finding out the gradients at each of the layers. That is delta net 2, okay, delta net 3 and so on. And then if I ask you to find delta net W3. What is the procedure to update it? How do I find delta net 3? So if I say that this is O1, this is O2, and this is O3, what is delta net 3? Delta, huh?
It is the product of the error and the rear end multiplied by the input.
That's all. Delta net 3 into what's the other thing I have to write? Into what?
O2.
Oh, yeah, tell
O2.
it loudly.
O2.
O2. Okay, is this enough?
O2
Is-
transpose.
O2 transpose. That's all. Okay. So if I calculated, if I did the backpropagation of the errors, okay, or found out the backpropagation of the gradients, means that I already have done update. Okay, I can easily do update. Okay, so that's what we do. Of course, you can do while doing itself, but our major focus is not on weight update at the beginning. Our update the parameters using gradients. Okay, this can be decoupled in fact. Okay, this can be a separate one than backpropagation. Backpropagation requires previous input. Okay, this requires previous gradients, and then only you can do this. This requires again, okay, this requires this gradient and so on. Okay, it's like a connected, right? It's goes in a chain. But whereas updating weight parameters is an intermediate, using this information, we do it. Okay, hope it's clear. Okay. Now let's see little more details on the training of neural networks. So there are three different categories that these people have put into. So one is one-time setup. So where we essentially say there are some of the aspects of the architecture, okay, and some of the aspects in terms of the task we want to perform, which can be decided a priori. Okay, and that will be set. And this is essentially the design of architecture and the overall framework. Once we design this, then the next thing is training. While training, there are few things that need to be looked at. Okay, and then you need to figure out itself. In sense, they are not straightforward. There are no standard rules. Okay, to do that. Even for one-time setup, there are may not be standard rules. But for during training dynamics that are mentioned here, okay, you need to see only after training. Okay, you need to set based on training. Okay, so you can't set a priori. And then the evaluation is once you train, you want to see whether it is working or not, and so on. Okay, so now and you also, it will also help as a check for the above ones. Okay, especially while setting the training dynamics. Okay, so now which are all one-time setup is, as you can see here, activation function. Okay, pre-processing the input, how the input should be given. Okay, how weight should be initialized. What regularization function do we use? And gradients, are they happening or not? Okay, so there are the gradient update happening. Okay, each gradient, is it 0? Okay, or at least there are varying and so on. Okay, and then once this is set, we assume that the network is ready for training, and we need to see few things like, say, how to set the learning rate. Okay, one of the very important hyperparameter. Okay, and we also need to see on are the parameters updated or not. And the last function we need to see, based on that we may need to change a few of the things, even weight initialization or any other things. Okay, so we may need to change or figure out few things. Okay, so mainly in hyperparameter setting is very important aspect. Okay, learning rate and other things. And we will see now the one after the other. So let's see now the
Just one.
yeah.
Here you mentioned gradient checking, right? In the
Right.
one-time setup. So how is it actually one-time setup?
Okay, so it's essentially what we try to do is initially itself, if we don't properly initialize weights, okay, or the input is not properly given, okay, in that case, gradients becomes all 0, okay, or they won't change at all, in sense that they don't get updated. So that's a initial check one has to do, even before you start the learning process. Okay, so once the things are at least in place, okay, it's like before you start the vehicle, you need to check few things, right? So this is among that. Once it's going, also it's important. It's necessary that gradients has to move and so on. Okay, but it's we assume that it most of the times it happens. And there are few other things which are more important while going to check. Okay, that's the essentially the hyperparameters, are they properly set or not based on whatever. So the is the loss okay at least decreasing or not. Okay, and then the is the saturation happening with the architecture? A few things of that sort. Of course, gradients also sometimes, if the network is complex, okay, you may see after some time gradients may not move and so on, and you need to check it. So you may not directly check it on the gradients. You will see few other things while assuming that gradients are moving. Yeah,
Okay.
is that fine?
Yes.
Yeah, fine. Okay. So let's see now on each of these things. So first of all, activation functions, which we discussed before. So I will not spend much time here. Okay, keep moving on to the slides and ask you few questions. So what's the first or common widely used activation function? What's the first activation function we discussed or commonly used activation function?
Sigmoid.
What?
Sigmoid activation function. So at least in the shallow networks, people call where there are more layers as deep neural networks, where there are less number of layers are as shallow neural networks. So in shallow networks, essentially sigmoid activation function is widely used. Okay, and especially in feed-forward neural networks and shallow networks, sigmoid activation function is widely used. What are the good things or bad things about sigmoid activation function that you know? These are all the different activation functions. Let us get our in, like whichever we are clear, and then discuss few other things which we are not clear. Okay, what about sigmoid activation function? What are the advantages of it or merits of it and demerits of it that you know?
Sir, it's a smooth, continuous, and differentiable, sir.
What's that?
It's a smooth, differentiable, and continuous, sir.
Not able to hear? Yeah, any other student? Yeah, what are the advantages of sigmoid activation function? What are the properties that are desirable for an activation function? Yeah, please
Sir,
go ahead.
it's a differentiable, continuous, and smooth function, sir. And the major advantage is that it will the scores will be between 0 to 1. The output score.
Okay,
And,
so it saturates.
Yes. Main disadvantage is its gradient will be decreases, sir, if the number of layers are increased.
Right, very good. Okay, good summary on sigmoid activation function. So one more disadvantage of this activation function is it's all positive. Okay, so it doesn't give positive and negative. Why we essentially wish to see positive and negative is see, while moving on to the cost space, okay, we don't want to say, if we say all the time positive, we will see that the implication is we can't move in all directions. Okay, so if we can only move in one direction, so if say for example, if I am in say W space, okay, where actually W1, W2, every time W1, W2 I am getting is either positive or negative, what happens? So assume that I can only move in which quadrants or along which quadrants. So if this is W1, W2, okay, and this is the cost function anyway on the top of it, okay, and I can assume that it's only W1, W2, W vector, okay, can always be only positive. Okay, assume that it's only positive. Okay, it's even more restricted. Then what's the quadrant in which I can move? Even if I'm in the first quadrant, towards first quadrant. That's all, right? So I can't move anywhere else. So if I can move only like this, so I can move only positive sides of W. Is it not? So assume that my initialization initially is here. Okay, this is initialization. That means J initially with the W naught. Okay, 1 comma W, so W1 naught comma W2 naught. I am here. Okay, but my loss is here. Okay, minimum loss. Okay, my minima is here. So this is the minima point. In this case, do you think I can move to minima? I'm initialized here. W can only be positive. Update delta W can only be positive. Okay. And in this case, do you think can I move to minima or not? Yes or
No,
no? No, I can't move, right? Okay. So that's the disadvantages if the things are all positive. See, the sigmoid activation function is anyway positive. Okay. I assume that even the input X is also positive. Okay. Then what happens in a network? X is positive. Sigmoid activation weights are all positive. Assume that initially I initialize with even with the positive, negative, fine. Okay, but sigmoid activation function is positive, right? So sigma of net I will have. Okay, so what will be the output then? Always be. You see, right? So you will see more detail on that. Okay, it will all be only one-sided. You can't move. So that is the restriction. So for that reason, we wish to get the activation functions are also both-sided. Okay, to the extent possible. But of course, there are again, if there is an activation function which is like reasonably fine. Okay, on the with positive side itself, we also use it, and that's the common practice also that happens. Okay. Okay. So the compared to sigmoid activation functions, what are the advantages of ReLU activation function? And still, what are the disadvantages still it has? Any quick answer here based on the discussion that we had? Yeah, I need quick answers because we are discussing things which are already done. It's like a review plus, okay, knowing little more details on the top of it with visualizations here.
It does not saturate it.
It saturates. It doesn't saturate. It saturates.
Doesn't saturate.
Okay, very good. It doesn't saturate. What are the other merits and demerits? Yeah, very good, important thing, like very main point of ReLU activation function. Why are we bringing in? You should tell.
So gradient won't diminish.
Gradient won't diminish. That's a very, very important thing, right? Okay, and what else? There is one disadvantage it has.
It is not differentiable at 0.
Okay, that's okay. We'll
And
manage.
It
What's
makes all the negative value as 0.
yeah, so it also is one-sided. Okay, and it's also not differentiable at 0. Okay, these are the shortcomings of ReLU activation. So this leaky ReLU activation function and elastic ReLU activation function, okay, and this max out activation function, these are all roughly actually kind of trying to put on the negative side as well. Okay, trying to address the shortcoming of ReLU, especially having only on one-sided updates. Okay. So they will have more space to move smoothly towards minima.